Hello, my name is Anubhav and I'm a student of first year Masters of Engineering. My specialization is in software engineering and this is my seminar topic, Generative Adversarial Network. I'm going to be discussing a few things, basically how GANs work, a few of the popular GANs that we know of, and just a brief overview of what I've done and achieved and learned over the past 2 to 3 months. So let's get started. So first things first, what is a GAN? A GAN stands for Generative Adversarial Network, which is basically the topic. So the idea over here is to get an approach towards generative modeling using deep learning networks. So far, most of the popular GANs that we have seen work with images only, and the most popular way to handle images is using CNNs or convolutional neural networks. In the right, you can see faces of people. They look pretty real, and which I should remind you at this point is that these are not real people. These are generated by NVIDIA StyleGAN. The paper link is over here. In fact, this is one of the few papers which actually motivated me to get started into this topic of GAN. And the link is over here, and I shall be sharing the presentation with you, so please do refer to that. Anyway, moving on. So what are the different type of models basically? So there are discriminative models, which can be basically classifiers or regressors. So they are basically can be again supervised or unsupervised. Supervised can include, as I said, classifiers and regressors. Unsupervised can include clustering. So the idea is that it is supposed to draw a distinction between classes, whereas a generative model is only unsupervised and it is supposed to provide synthetic examples. So the idea is that say we feed in images of dogs, so the generative model will only be able to generate an image of a dog, whereas a discriminative model will probably, if we upload images of different type of dogs and used a clustering on them, it would most probably be able to differentiate between different type of dogs based on different features. So in a nutshell, the prediction of a discriminative model is a function of y over x, where y is the label or the class, whereas the x is the feature. Whereas for a generative model, the function is x over y, where x is the feature and y is the label or class. Next slide. Thank you. So the type of generative models that we have over here, there are two very popular models which we know of. One is variational autoencoders, where the structure is somewhat, there's an encoder followed by which goes into a latent space, and again there's a decoder. Whereas the second one, which we are interested in today, is GAN or Generative Adversarial Network, where there's a generator and a discriminator. And as the name suggests, adversarial, the generator and discriminator basically compete against each other to actually provide the best output. Each of them is trying to fool the other one. So what are the parts of a GAN? The first is obviously the discriminator. The discriminator is essentially a classifier which distinguishes between real and fake data inputs. The generator is something which basically generates a synthetic example, and its task is to basically pass it through the discriminator, and in such a way that the discriminator will say that this is not a real example, this is indeed a real example, essentially to fool the discriminator. And finally, both the models will compete against each other. We shall come to that part in a bit. So generator, the learning is simply in a sequential manner. As such, the generator is indeed a sequence to sequence model, and we have implemented a vanilla GAN later where we shall be using a sequential model to do that. So the idea is that there's a noise vector sigma which goes into a goes into a generator along with the features, The feature shall be most probably vector matrix, and which goes again into a discriminator and is supposed to provide a output, and over which the cost function or the cost output is calculated, or simply said, we had discussed earlier, the prediction is a function of x over y, or for a single class where y is equal to 1, it is just a function of x. So in the previous example we saw that we discussed the last stage where we are going to be calculating the cost function. So what is the cost function? So the cost function is basically it is a measure of how much error. It's a way to actually penalize the model based on the error rates, or to actually have a, so if the model is predicting wrong, the cost will be higher, whereas if it is predicting well, the cost will be lower. That's the entire idea behind a cost function. And there are many cost functions out there, but we are going to be discussing the most common one, which is binary cross entropy, or BCE. So we can see the equation for the BCE right in the middle of our screen. I shall be explaining what that means, but just for a heads up, the H means the predictions by the model for an input X. Y is the true label for something which is true or false. X is the label, and theta is a parameter which is basically the discriminator output. Y of y to the power I is basically the true label where y is equal to 1, and 1 minus y to the power I essentially means it's a false label, which means it is y equal to 0. Okay. So to understand the significance, we have to look at the first part of the BCE. The first part of the BCE is where if the true label is 1 and the predicted is 0, we can see from the graph that if the true label is 1 and the predicted label is 0, the cost function tends to almost infinity. Again, if the true label is 1 and the predicted is also 1, then again the value of the cost function almost leads to 0. So this is for the first part, and the second part is when the true label is 0 and the predicted is 1. Again, the cost tends to be very high. So this is important to keep in mind, that only for a wrong prediction we shall be penalizing highly. That's the basic crux, and obviously from the information on this screen, the data will be vice versa. I mean, if for the second part of the equation, which is log of 1 minus h to the h of x of I comma theta, for that, if again the true label is 1 and the predicted is also 1, the cost will definitely be low. So these are the two parts of the equation which basically covered the predictions, or the true labels being 1 and 0 and the predictions being 1 and 0. Essentially, we can see that if we draw a 4 cross where we look at the true positive, false positive, true negative and false negatives over there. We shall not be doing that, but that's just a short visualization. So just to put it all together, on our left we can see a standard GAN model architecture. So how does it work exactly? As I was showing in that in the chronological order, the idea is that there's a noise which will go into the generator. Noise is just another one hot vector. It's nothing more than that. The generator which goes through the fakes, such that the fakes, it's supposed to make the fakes look like real. Now the combination of fakes and reals, now we call the fakes as x cap or x prime, and let's call the real ones x. So a combination of x and x primes or x caps will go into the discriminator, which is a classifier, and it shall provide an output. The output will be basically calculated, and the cost function will be calculated from the BCE with again the labels for the actual reals and actual fakes, and it shall see that how well the discriminator is doing. So based on that, the first step is obviously to train the discriminator, followed by which we shall be again training the generator. So the generator again takes a noise based on the theta from the cost function. Both of these go into the generator again, and now it shall take only fake examples and put it through the discriminator such that it gets an output y cap, and over which again we shall be calculating the cost function. Just to be clear, the cost function is calculated such that if the discriminator is actually being fooled, the cost is basically high. So coming back to the second point, which was the second part of the GAN, which is A, or the what does the A stand for? A stands for adversarial. So the idea is that the generator and the discriminator train one after the other in repetition, and they will go on and on until that's really on us where we want to stop it. Ideally, we usually stop when the loss function starts to flatten out, but that's really on you how much you have to wait. Followed by that, they compete against each other. Compete, or basically adversary means opponent. So since the generator and the discriminator are competing against each other, so hence the name generative adversarial network. Now it is obviously important not to overtrain either of them, because say we have a very superior discriminator. Now if the superior discriminator will classify all the fakes as 100% fake, now that doesn't leave good theta for, because then we would get a flat theta, and as a or very high theta for, as a result the generator will not get much data to know that what it can basically improve upon. Similarly, again, a superior generator will do the same. If the discriminator gets all the inputs and it ends up classifying all the inputs as trues, then again there's not much scope for the discriminator to learn. So either way, it is important that both stay at the same level. So in summary, so far, a GAN can train in an alternative fashion, which is a generator followed by a discriminator, again followed by a generator, again followed by a discriminator, as many times as we want to, or as many times as is necessary, followed by the skill. Now it is very important that both the discriminator and the generator both match up, or both have a similar skill level, and we explained the reason for that in the previous slide. Now obviously most of our work is with images, and GAN primarily deals with images, so we shall be exploring DC GAN over here, and it is one of the most popular and successful network designs that we've come across. DC GAN was initially done with, I think, an ROI based architecture, which later was followed up by an RCNN based architecture. So the idea is that during the first attempt, obviously the generator, as we can see, the generator was giving out a line, the discriminator classifies that as false, then it after several attempts it gives out the shade of a cat, which is again false, and finally it ends up giving an image which almost looks like a cat, or which basically actually looks like a cat. So this is a sample demonstration, nothing much over here. Yeah. So I've built a vanilla GAN, and the link is to the bottom right. That's a Colab notebook, so we can one can look through that, but I have basically circled out the important areas in later slides, so that there's probably no need to do that. And we shall be going through the following parts of the code, which is, the first one is how I made the generator, The second is how I made the discriminator. Third is the loss and the optimizers, and fourth is how I ran the training in a loop. I've used 50 epochs over here. Anyway, so the generator uses TF-Keras layers, or as I was saying at the beginning, that it is basically a sequential model. So as we can see in the first line, that tf.keras.sequential, and from there we are basically upsampling the images to actually reach a desired resolution. And once we have done that, we can see the leaky ReLU, which is being used as the activation for every layer except for obviously the last layer, which uses TANH. Then comes the discriminator. The discriminator is pretty simple. It's a CNN based image classifier, nothing much over there. And finally, the loss and optimizers. We are using binary cross entropy. Now, binary cross entropy does have its own disadvantages, but we shall be discussing that later on. And finally we come to the generator loss, which is basically show basically how well the generator is able to trick the discriminator. Now obviously if the generator is performing well, the discriminator will classify the fake images as real, and that's what we see over here. And the discriminator and the generator optimizers are different because we will be training the two networks separately. And finally to the last part, which is the training loop. The training loop begins with the generator receiving a random seed as an input. Now that seed is used to produce an image. The discriminator is then used to classify real images drawn from the training set and fake images produced by the generator. The loss is then calculated and the gradients are used to update the generator and the discriminator. It usually starts initially with a random theta, but over time that theta is updated. Now in the next image what we see is basically a output to the right, which is basically data which is trained on the MNIST data set. Now then that is basically what we had achieved in the previous slides. We used MNIST as our data set and we trained it for 50 epochs. Now the images begin as a random noise, which is again nothing but a one-hot vector, and increasingly, as we can see, they slowly end up resembling actual numbers, which is very interesting to see. So one of the most common problems that we face with GANs, one is mode collapse. Mode collapse is when the generator is actually stuck in just one mode. Modes are peaks in feature distribution. So to give an example, say we are trying to categorize, or we are trying to predict on images with say just images of dogs. Now sorry, not predict, but generate images of dogs, and it only is giving out images of golden retrievers. So that is not a very good place to be, because we don't want to be stuck in just one output, but we want the model to actually learn better. Now one of the major reasons for that is that somewhere the model has stuck itself in a local minima. And the second problem is that there's a vanishing gradient. Now the vanishing gradient is basically when the discriminator improves too much or is absolutely not learning at all. The function approximated by the BCE will contain flats, or basically it will flatten out because there's nothing more for, because it's getting all of them true, so the cost is low. As a result, the theta input for the generator is low, and as a result flat regions lead to what we call as vanishing gradients. So as I said before, that when each iteration of the generator when it over optimizes for a certain problem and never manages to learn its way out of the trap. And as a result, the generator rotates to a small set of output. In my example, I said that it only runs through the image of say only one dog, say golden retriever only. But here in this example with MNIST, we have seen that the outputs only cycle between 1 and 8. Now this is basically a GAN failure. The second, now how do we actually solve that vanishing gradient problem, and in turn, in fact, we shall also be solving the mode collapse problem. Now, one of the earliest theories was using earth mover's distance. The fundamental of the idea is that EMD, or earth mover's distance, tries to make the generated distribution equal to the actual distribution, as we can see in the first figure to the top left. And the actual distribution is shown as a function which is basically any real value. So to put it in a pointwise format, earth mover's distance is a function of amount and distance. It does not have flat regions when the distributions are different, or say they absolutely match each other. It doesn't matter, and approximately the earth mover's distance solves the problems associated with BCE, which is vanishing gradient, and in turn also mode collapse. Now, to combat that, we came up with another loss function, which is Wasserstein loss, or W loss. The W loss approximates on the earth mover's distance. Here we have we can see the function below. The G is the generator, P and C is for critic. Critic can be looked very similar to a discriminator, and in short, the whereas the BCE will return a value between 0 and 1, the W loss returns a real number or real value, and W loss prevents mode collapse and vanishing gradient problem. So to close, so that brings me towards the end of my presentation. We have now it's not very easy to discuss all that's there about GANs, but I've tried to keep this as short as possible. And further topics we have worked on or are planning to explore are conditional GANs. This is something we are indeed working on and have achieved results. We are currently working on the CIFAR 10 dataset, followed by our controllable GANs. We are again working on those, where we are basically trying to modify small features, like we are working with the faces dataset, faces IO dataset, and we are trying to put a one hot and inputs in the one hot encoder noise, one hot vector noise, and based on that, we are basically expecting to get a different hair color or a different facial feature. Like say putting something as 0 might lead to adding a facial hair to a face, or changing something to 1 might change somebody's hair color from say black to blue or something like that. And the third is actually solving where we are actually getting stuck with the Z controllable GAN, which is Z-space entanglement. The Z-space entanglement is basically when trying to control one of the features, others that are correlated with that feature ends up changing. Often we have seen that if we are trying to add facial hair, we see that the entire structure of the face ends up changing, like from a circular face we end up getting a rectangular face. Now that's something we don't want. We want to add features to a circular face only. So there's something to do with facial hair with rectangular face. We've not been able to come out of that mess. One of the ideas is that we can achieve that disentanglement using maybe supervised learning methods. But that's a discussion for another day. So just to give a chart of our work summary, I had joined in February 2021, where I began with a literature survey on GANs from various journals. Some of them included IEEE, ARXIV, Springer, and followed by that in March 2021 I myself built my first vanilla GAN on the MNIST dataset, which we have seen in this presentation. In April I built a conditional GAN on the CIFAR 10 dataset, and I am able to definitely control and get outputs to my liking, such as I am able to get an aeroplane, a dog, whatever. And in this month we are basically semantically evaluating different things. They include inception scores, the outputs, as the CIFAR 10 dataset is of a low resolution. It's difficult to actually often see, so we have to use an inception score rather than visually inspecting the answers. And followed by, as I was discussing in the last slide, that is the disentanglement of the Z space. And thank you so much for listening to me, for being through me watching this presentation. And this would not have been possible without my guide, Poroma ma'am, and also Devmallo helped me a lot. He's my senior as well as he's my friend, so he has been a constant help and has guided me where I've stuck. Poroma ma'am has often always been the one to refer me to the right materials, and the idea of just going through a literature survey can help so much, rather than just looking through two Medium articles. That can make a lot of difference. So thank you so much, and this I end my presentation over here.